Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. I was told if I put this microphone right here, I'll have substantially better audio quality. I'm going to let you all pick. Do you want this microphone right in front of my face? Because I think it actually detracts a lot from my image. Or, do you not worry about it? Don't worry about that microphone. Clear up the screen. You all tell me in the chat box. I'll let you pick. Today we're going to be talking about how to make perfect folds on the river against a subsection of the poker players. How's my son doing? I have two sons. They're doing great. Mr. Thomas is right outside the door, actually. Maybe I'll get him to come say hello. He is doing a puzzle right now, so that's fun. It's been a busy weekend. I wasn't here on Monday. You all probably thought I just disappeared off the face of the earth. But I was in Las Vegas. I won an award. Thanks to all of you. We won the Global Poker Personality of the Year Award. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Surprisingly heavy. Thank you all very much for voting for me. If you didn't vote for me, I certainly wouldn't have won. I'm glad that you enjoy my work. Again, let me know what you all think about this microphone right here. I don't really like the microphone in the frame, but if it makes the sound a million times better, I guess it's just worth it. You saw this hand 2 times. You had 4-3 suited. You open with a 3-bet. Don't 3-bet with ace 4-3 suited ever. All right, flop comes 4-3-2. You get all in. They both have ace 5. Was this a bad strategy? Yeah, don't 3-bet ace or 4-3 suited. Just fold it. Just fold 4-3 suited. Deserving is an interesting word because people say I deserved it. I don't know if I actually deserved it. I guess in this instance I did because the the qualifications were get people to vote for you. And well, if you get people to vote for you, if you get the most people to vote for you, I suppose you deserve it. So that's that. Yeah, I guess I did deserve it. That's good. Poker's a weird game because I don't really feel like you ever deserve much out of poker beyond expected returns in the long run, but the long run is very, very long. But, in things like award shows, well, then it's maybe you actually do deserve stuff. I don't know. I have to think about that one. Why do you believe sit and goes are low variance? Oh, I don't believe it. I know they are. You see many players saying online sit and goes are high variance. You're guessing due to the short stacks. Well, listen, you're not going to have much of an edge in any individual sit and go, but you get to play many, many, many sit and goes, right? And basically, over something like 5,000 games, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what your in the money percentage is, at least. And then that's going to give you a pretty good idea of what your ROI is over 25,000 games. And 25,000 games, you can play, 4,000 a month? So it takes you 6 months to play to have a pretty great idea of what your ROI is. That doesn't happen in tournaments, I can tell you that. Probably happens in cash games. You'll have a pretty good idea of what your win rate is over something like 6 months of play. So, pretty low variance compared to things like multi-table tournaments where your results depend on a few outlier wins, right? In sit and goes, your results don't depend on outlier wins at all, which is why the best players just consistently grind their money up. All right. But yes, your ROI in any individual game is very, very low. Pre-flop, you have 30 big blinds. You open with 8s under the gun +1 with a tight image. Fairly tight guy in the hijack. 3-bet jams from 15 big blinds. Are you calling? Yes, absolutely. 8s are great. That's a song from Sesame Street. They go, 8, 8, 8 is great. You can turn it this way. You can turn it that way. That's what the Count sings. You know these things if you have children. All right, so first things first. We're going to talk about being able to make perfect folds against specific players. And in order to do this, first things first, you must pay attention. If you do not pay attention, you will not have any idea of what your opponent's overall strategy is, right? So, if you're just trying to play blind GTO poker, you're not going to be able to make great folds on the river. You're just going to make GTO folds. And if you just make GTO folds, well, you're going to lose loads and loads of potential return on investment because you are not going to be maximally exploiting your opponents. One of the big downsides of all of these GTO training programs that are coming out is that it's teaching players to make substantial blunders against the weaker players in the player pool, which, it turns out is almost everyone in the small stakes games. So if you're going to be making significant mistakes against everyone in the small stakes games, why would you want to spend significant time studying with a tool that teaches you to make significant mistakes against your opponents? Well, you probably shouldn't, right? And it's important to realize what tools are useful for, and a lot of people are taking tools that are useful for some things and applying them very, very incorrectly to something different. And the thing is that there really aren't... Oh, let me have Thomas. I have to say hello. Come say hello. People never get to see you. Say hi. Look, there's Thomas. Say hello. Yeah, say hi. This is Mr. Thomas. He is nice. Normally he's taking a nap right now, but he happens to be awake. He was actually right on his way to take a nap. Yeah, you're going to take a nap? Can you say Thomas? Can you say Daddy? Can you say Mom? You're going to be shy now? Are you going to be shy and not say anything? He's a very, very good boy. You're a very good boy. Stand up. Look, he's learning to stand. Stand up. Stand up. Use your legs. Use your legs. Use your legs. He doesn't want to stand up. That's okay. All right. Well, I hope you have a good nap. We go take a good nap? You say bye-bye? Bye-bye. 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 All right. Go to Doma. See you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye. 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 So audio is much better. All right, well, good. If you all like the audio with this giant microphone in front of me, hey, I can put it way up close. I can put it like right here. Not a fan of this, but it is what it is. Now Mr. Thomas is so sad. He says, oh, you're taking me away. Mr. Thomas is, he doesn't like it whenever things get taken away from him. Okay. Do I think Possible is surely cheating? I think he's surely cheating. At the Global Poker Awards, Joe Ingram got an award for the Possible thing. And it was very funny. He kept saying, I couldn't believe anyone would actually cheat in these spots. But, every time he gets a tough spot, he looks like this every time. And every time he doesn't have a tough spot, he doesn't look like this. So every time he's looking at his crotch, he has a tough decision. And then he makes the right play every single time. Yeah, that's called cheating. Sure you're aware that I had a data breach a while ago. Yes. Apparently Credit Karma is way behind. About a year ago, or maybe not a year ago, 6 months ago, something like that, we sent an email to every user saying that we did have a data breach. That was not good. But we resolved to fix all the holes. We did that, and we have moved forward as productively as we can. Running a website's tough, especially if people think you may deal with credit card information, which I don't. I have nobody's credit card information. We use third-party processors, Stripe and PayPal. And if anyone thinks you have access to very valuable things like credit cards, they are going to try to hack you. And unfortunately, people are way better at hacking than they are against protecting against the hacking. Too close now, turn the gain down a touch. I mean, come on, guys. Turn it down on your end. Maybe I'll do I turn this down? Maybe that fixes it. Too loud, too soft. It is what it is. We want less echo. Ideally, less echo is better. So maybe I'm supposed to have it like this. This is what they do on Twitch when they stream. Okay, let's see. I feel like blockers are even better against recreational players. I generally disagree. Because bad players just play their hand. All right. Okay. So, first things first, pay attention. If you don't know what your opponent's doing correctly, you will have no idea at all how to exploit them. Okay? Realize that some players, many players, especially in the small stakes, have spots where they essentially never bluff. Or rarely bluff. never and rarely are basically the same thing. If your opponent bluffs 2% of the time in a spot, well, that might as well be never, right? So, realize that. You want to find the point where each player will act honestly, right? Because if you can get your opponent to a scenario where they act honestly, that will be great for you because then you can make perfect decisions. For example, when most recreational players 5-bet pre-flop, well, they probably just have the nuts, right? Think about it. When's the last time you saw 5-bet pre-flop? I'm just trying to think. In the last WPT at Jacksonville that I played, I folded kings to pre-flop. It went raise, 3-bet, I just called, 4-bet, 5-bet all in, and I folded, right? And I'm basically saying with that fold, my opponents are literally never bluffing. So if my opponents are literally never bluffing, I get to fold a lot, right? And I did, and it was the correct fold. I was against aces. Someone says the proper way to do this is to put the microphone like this and then talk very slowly like a robot in a neutral voice. Is this the proper way to stream? Is this what people enjoy? I don't really care what people enjoy, I suppose. At some point, you just have to do what you want and enjoy yourself. Sorry, guess we're not going to be a pro Twitch streamer anytime soon. All right. So, you want to find the spot where people act honestly. So, for the most part, you're going to find that most players will raise preflop with a pretty wide range, but then they will continuation bet frequently too. So, raise, regular range, continuation bet, regular range. We've learned really nothing so far. Next, they essentially some players will start playing the turn very straightforwardly. So, if your opponent will only bet the turn with the hands that they perceive to be very, very strong, then you get to start making big folds immediately. So against a lot of players, you can call their pre-flop raise pretty wide, call their flop raise, or their flop bet pretty wide, and then fold a ton on the turn. And that is very, very important. How could you be sure your opponent wasn't doing that with queens or ace king? I wasn't sure, but I was pretty sure. Tight guy raised under the gun. Tight guy 3-bet, I cold called. Tight guy 4-bet, tight guy 5-bet. All in for like 150 big blinds. You think they're doing that with ace, king, or queens? You wouldn't think so. Funny enough, the guy who I thought had aces, he actually had jacks, so maybe you're right. But the other guy was competent, and he had aces. Yeah, how do you know? The thing is, you can't know when your opponents have the nuts, right? But you can start to become pretty sure. And that's really it. I mean, we're playing a guessing game here, right? So when you're playing a glorified guessing game, it's important to realize that you will be wrong sometimes, and that's okay. The question is, how often are you wrong? If you're wrong a lot, then, well, that's a big problem. If you're wrong never, well, that's great. You're just going to win all the money, right? Turn the thermostat up. Turn the thermostat down. Turn the thermostat up. Yeah, well, I'm killing you. I have headphones on. Sorry. We won't do that anymore. Microphone play is not fun. It's not cute. It's not funny. You're allowed to do it one time per year, or when you get a new microphone. This is not a new microphone, so you're only allowed to do it once per year. I used it. I did it. I'm sorry. All right. Some things are not funny. In my opinion, annoying humor is not funny at all. So yeah, too bright. It's really not too bright. You know, I actually have a problem with the camera here. I'll tell you why. It's because I need a backlight behind me. I need a light shining at my face. I have to ask, do I want to sacrifice a regular looking office in exchange for a better studio? I don't know. Online, you lean towards calling more often than folding. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good idea. I lean towards calling in general, especially if you play your range in a manner that makes your opponents bluff. If you've induced bluffs, then you should be hero calling more often. Good morning. Everyone's straggling in late. Do I think they might cancel the World Series this year? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, the thing is like, no, I don't think we have a great idea of what's going to happen with the virus issue. And the tough thing is that you may not actually know until like May, right? Early May. Because either it's going to be like big then or probably the same or worse, same or not so big then. And if that's the case, it's like you don't want to just cancel everything. I mean, I'm actually dealing with this. So I work with D&B Poker, and they have a booth at the World Series every year. And they pay a lot of money for it, and they don't really make money on it. It's more of a marketing expense. They're going to go out there, they're going to sell some books, get in front of a lot of people, etc., etc. And we have to decide if we want to go ahead and cancel the booth or not, because just imagine attendance is down 20%. Well, if we make 20% money less from the booth, we're just going to go from breaking even on the booth to losing money on the booth. So yeah. Can you explain what the poker scene was like in the early 2000s during the gold mine? Well, everyone just didn't know how to play very well. There are many places where you can bet on the World Series being canceled. There are sports books and whatnot. I would suggest you generally bet with sports books over random people. When you bet with random people, every once in a while you get stiffed. When you bet with a sports book, usually you're not going to get stiffed, assuming you're betting with a reputable sports book. That said, nice thing about betting with individuals is you often get slightly better lines because they're betting at a VIG free line. Although usually if they are offering bets, they're not offering a VIG free line. They're usually offering the same lines that the good casinos are offering. Was there a time before big success where it felt like more than a job than passion? No, the opposite. If anything, after you have big success, it feels like more of a job than a passion. Because once you have big success, you have to ask, am I really doing what I want to be doing? Because like if you're making ends meet, you kind of have to be doing what you're doing to some extent. But once you actually have a decent amount of money, now it's more like, well, I can kind of do whatever I want, right? So if you can do whatever you want, you start to question what you're doing, especially whenever it's kind of not fun, right? And poker is not always fun. So, no. I mean, I think every poker player has gone through like small periods where they're like, oh, should I be doing something else? The nice thing for me is that I don't really have any other great skills. Funny enough, some recruiter emailed me the other day trying to talk about some CEO position of a small company. I'm like, no, I'm not going to quit my job to be a CEO of a small company that I know nothing about. Thank you, though. Weird. Who in the world even thought to ask me? I mean, to be fair, like I've had offers for jobs in finance a few times. They were like decent jobs. A lot of them, they were like, you're probably not going to make a ton of money in the first few years, but then in the future, maybe you start, if you run hot and then you crush it. So it's a gamble, right? Am I willing to give up what I have currently for a gamble? And the tough thing is that I have a lot of good things going on in the poker world. I'm not just someone who goes to the casino every day and plays poker, right? So given that I am different than the generic poker player, any real job offer would have to be exceptionally good. And I mean, I'm running a business now that's going to be doing better than probably any job that I could get. So I'm in an interesting spot. But no, when you get burnt out, take a little break, enjoy life, enjoy yourself, realize that poker is a great way to make money if you're profitable, etc., etc. At least 40% of players come from overseas. You're a little worried about going this year. I mean, look, I don't really get worried about things like getting sick. I know that sounds a little bit like I'm downplaying the virus or what. I'm not. I don't make it sound like that. But I don't really. I mean, listen, your health is very valuable. In terms of my health, I'm not so worried about getting sick because I'm a young man in pretty good shape. So if they have the World Series, I will probably be going. So take that for what it's worth. Do I know Brad Osberger? No, I do not. I don't know many people by name. Sorry. Nice mic. This is the same mic I've always had. I just moved it closer to my face. In the past, I had it right here out of camera shot. You all complained about the audio quality, though. So I figured I'd put it right here. And let me know if the sound's better. When's the tournament course coming out? Whenever I make it. I had a retreat this weekend, and I had one of my friends, Johnny Bittencourt of Clutch Prep, come out to teach us all how to teach. I had a bunch of the poker coaching coaches there. And basically, he said I need to spend significantly more time planning because, this is my planning for this. I write notes for about a minute and a half, and then I do it. He says I should probably be spending more like a 1-to-1 time or 2-to-1 time preparing to actually recording. I was talking to a few other content producers. I talked to Jamin Burton. Shout out to him. The Drawing Dead. Look up his video blogs. They're fun. He said that he spends 60 minutes for every 1 minute of content. I'm like, oh my goodness. I spend 1.1 minute for every 1 minute of content. And maybe that's how I get a lot done, to be fair. I realize it's not always going to be perfect, but it's like pretty close. And basically what I've determined to do is I'm going to record the whole thing, go through and break everything down into what I said, reorganize what I said, and re-record. And that's basically what Johnny did for me and for a few of my modules for the upcoming tournament class. And it was better, right? It was straight up better. Because everything was more concise, more like better organized. And then it also allows you to break up the topics into things that make logical sense. Like every once in a while, you'll just say something that's kind of a tangent. And you don't really want tangents when you're trying to teach something very concise and specific. How was Vegas? Vegas was great. You all helped me win this award. We won the Poker Personality of the Year award. You all voted for me. So I won this. I actually did not expect to win. Because Joey Ingram did a great work this year, as did Lex and Ryan DePaulo. I'm going to go have lunch with Ryan DePaulo tomorrow. That'll be fun. I had a call with Joey Ingram last night. We may be making things happen. Whenever it came time for the award, all the camera crew, so far, every single time someone was up for an award and they won, the camera crew went over to them and filmed them before they called the award. So I'm like, okay, the camera crew clearly knows who's winning, right? So whenever it came time for this award, the camera crew ran over to Joe Ingram. I'm like, oh, Joe Ingram wins. So I was already like chilling, not even thinking I'm going to get called. Then they're like, oh, Jonathan Little. Oh, that's good. So I kind of got slow rolled by the camera crew. Got slow rolled quite hard by the camera crew. Ryan and Jonathan, two sides of the poker coin. Yes, we are different individuals. We're different marketing tactics. Thought the camera crew had to tell, but turns out they just went to whoever they thought was going to win. I guess they were right most of the time. I don't think people realize the following I have because it is not so loud on social media. My followers tend to be more adults, whereas a lot of other people in any content space have a lot of followers who are children. Is children the right word? They're just louder is what it amounts to. They're louder on social media. When people are louder on social media, people think that loudness indicates a true following. And that's just not true. You can look at this in all forms of people who have following. Some of them it's like obvious, and sometimes it's not so obvious. Does it count as a slow roll if you win the hand? Yes. What do you mean? You don't slow roll somebody when you lose. Smash the like button. Yes. If you all are enjoying this, click like and click subscribe. That'll go a long way to helping other people learn about me. Okay, how do we make big folds? Fine, you hear how we go on these tangents? This is not a good learning experience for anyone. You all keep distracting me. Either I distract myself or you distract me. Okay. Find spots where people will play honestly. Okay, spots where people play honestly when they start 4-betting and 5-betting pre-flop. Most people are very honest when they 4-bet or 5-bet pre-flop. Most people are very honest when they raise the river. Not the best players in the world, but I'm talking about recreational-ish players. When they raise the river, they almost always have the nuts. You're not going to see very many spots where you bet the river, someone raises you, and they show up with like a bluff, any bluff or any overvalued marginal made hand. It just doesn't happen. 20% of you have pressed the like button so far. Well, I'm sad to see that you don't enjoy the show today, but it is what it is. Oh, so like, I see. The cameraman slow rolled me, but I got the award. No, so that happens sometimes where like the opponent just doesn't know what's going on. If the opponent just doesn't know what's going on, then, sure, slow roll me as much as you like. You should be very happy whenever you win the pot. Click the like button. Yes, thank you. How much is your biggest hit in a tournament? I won $1 million 2 times. I guess the biggest one was slightly bigger than $1 million. It was for that trophy right there. And then I got this trophy way back there. Both those are about $1 million. It's good to win money. Okay. So, you're going to find that the vast majority of people in the small or the middle stakes games, when they go bet, flop, turn, and river, they almost always have a very polarized range, okay? But they're very often missing many of the obvious bluffs. So a lot of people will not take something like a gut shot straight draw, bet the flop and bet the turn, and then bet the river with it. They give up a lot. So when your opponents take that line of bet, and they are generally straightforward, those types of players almost always have very, very strong hands. So given that, you should start folding out a lot of your very, very strong hands. Now, it's very important to realize what you know and just what you think you probably know, okay? Great example of this. This weekend in Vegas, I was playing poker with my team, and one of my guys, Dan, is known to be very, very tight. Doesn't play very many hands, doesn't get out of line, so we thought. And then we're playing, he shows up with the nuts a few times, and then he runs an amazing bluff. On the river, he just goes pre-flop, raise with 9-8 offsuit, bet flop, bet turn, jam river with an open-ended straight draw. His opponent's like, I guess I have to fold. Folds top pair. Then Dan shows the bluff. We were playing where you had to show every hand. Because that's a great way to learn whenever you're playing live poker. And everyone at the table who knew Dan we definitively knew Dan just had the nuts. Yet, he had nothing. So what does that mean? Well, that means what we thought we knew was not actually accurate. And, you have to realize, I've actually played poker with Dan a pretty good amount of time. So, I have lots of data on Dan. And turns out, he's learned, he's gotten better. And that's fantastic, right? But, realize, we all got it very wrong. I have a student who's always coming to me, giving me these really specific reads on players that he thinks he knows very well, but then you dig in a little bit deeper, and you're like, turns out you've been playing with this guy for 2 hours? If you've been playing with someone for 2 hours, you do not know definitively at all what they are doing, especially in very random spots that don't come up all that often. Like when they go bet, jam, right? Dan exploited you guys. He did. Dan got us. And we were all very happy for him. We high-fived him. Everybody high-fived Dan. And that's fantastic. But realize that, imagine that happened in a high-stakes game where we're playing for lots of money, then you're like, oh my god, this guy just crushed us. And the thing is that what happens is a lot of people will play a specific way for a while, and then they'll do the exact opposite. Gus Hansen is a great example of this. Gus Hansen played like a lunatic in tournaments for 4 or 5 years. To be fair, it's probably a good strategy because people were folding too often. And then all of a sudden, he just started playing kind of tight. And people kept paying him off. And that was fantastic for him. Vanessa Selps did something similar. There were times where she was just a lunatic, and then she chilled out, and people kept paying her off like she was a lunatic. And the thing is, if people know you are capable of really getting out of line, then there's always that question of a doubt in their head. If people don't think you're capable of getting out of line, well, then they're going to start making big folds, right? So Dan realized, appropriately, that we all thought he was never going to be bluffing in a spot when he puts all of his money in. And turns out he just was willing to do that. And he actually ran 3 or 4 bluffs over the course of our 3 sessions, and they all worked. Because he still played kind of tight, but then he just won every pot that didn't actually belong to him. What's going on with this camera here? 1 second, I just realized this thing was not set properly. There we go, isn't that better? I think the coronavirus is a bluff. No, I highly doubt it. Whatever whole countries are shutting themselves down, it's probably not a bluff. Okay. So, once you realize that you can actually never definitively know if someone is bluffing or not, what can you do about that? Well, the easy way to make sure you're always keeping people honest, if that's what you want to call it, is to look them up sometimes, to make hero calls sometimes. And the best time's a hero call, especially if you think your opponent may just be overvaluing a set on a 3 flush board or a straight on a 3 flush board, something like that, is to just call with not necessarily the best blocker hands, but instead with just the second nut type hands, right? So if you do have a straight and there's 3 to a flush on the board against players where you normally call with the straight. Against the tight players you think really aren't bluffing all that often, you should still probably call sometimes. Or if you have a low flush, like say you somehow have the nut low flush and you think your opponent has a whole lot of flushes and nothing else, you should still probably make the call. And you need to call sometimes against everyone until you have just an immense data set. And now, when I say an immense data set, I don't mean you played with a guy for 8 hours and he hasn't bluffed all day. I mean you played with a guy, I don't even know, I was going to say 800. You probably don't need 800. But you probably need something like 300 hours to play with a guy to like know he's not going to be bluffing in spots like this. So you need to have a very clear idea of the big exploits you need to make before you do make very, very, very big folds. Jonathan is calling with 9-8 on an ace-3, 8-8 ace board. Depends on how the play goes out, right? Say a nit raises pre-flop, he bets the flop, he bets the turn, he jams the river. Am I calling with 9-8? Obviously not. If a lunatic raises the button, it goes check, bet, call on the flop, check, check, turn, check, bet on the river, I'm going to call. So it depends, right? It's not just what you do in this spot, it's what you do in this spot against this particular opponent or this particular scenario. What is a blocker hand? Okay, so say we have ace of spades, jack, and the board comes queen, jack, 3, 2 spades. We check, opponent bets, we call, turns a blank, a 2. We check, our opponent bets, we call with our middle pair. River is a 7 of spades, putting up 3 spades. So queen, jack, 3, 2, 7, right? And our opponent just goes bet, bet, bet. That's a spot where when your opponent does go bet, 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 if they're good, they should have a very polarized range, meaning either the nuts or nothing. And the thing is, when we have the ace of spades in our hand, it's way less likely that they have a flush because they don't have ace king of spades, ace 10 of spades, ace 9 of spades, ace 8 of spades, ace 6 of spades, ace 5 of spades, or ace 4 of spades. So knowing that allows us to make slightly bigger calls in that scenario. So having the ace of spades there is quite good for me. Now you may say, doesn't that take away some of their bluffs? Some of them, but realize they could have king 10, they could have ace 10, they could have 10-9, right? So there are some non-flush hands that they could have. So in that scenario, that's where you'd want to call against those players. Whereas against like a nit, you would not want to call the ace jack there because they could just be value betting with like queen jack or ace queen for all you know, right? So against some players, the blocker calls are very, very good. Against other players, the blocker calls are not so good. And that's where it's important to realize what your opponent's overall strategy is. So if your opponent's just going to be betting with only flushes and only bluffs, then, or only flushes plus bluffs, stuff like middle pair becomes very good, and the blocker is the most relevant consideration. If your opponent's going to be betting with a more linear range of flushes, straights, 2 pairs, trips, top pairs, etc., well, now just your raw hand strength becomes the most important concern. Did Doug Polk get upset about you winning the award? I'm not sure why anyone cares what random people think on the internet. I've never talked to Doug Polk my whole life. I don't know anything about the guy. If he gets upset over things like winning an award, well, then you should try to win the award. I doubt he cares because he wasn't even in the running. If you're not even in the running and you don't even like poker, I'm not sure why you would care about poker awards. It's important to realize that some people are not in things for the long haul. A lot of people love trying to get rich quick from something. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's important to realize that most people don't have stick-with-itness. And the way you win things like, well, People's Choice Awards is to stick with it for the 15 years we've been in the game and not quit to try to be a cryptocurrency comedian. I ignored your question. Well, I didn't ignore your question. Realize I'm getting a lot of questions. And I'm trying to give a concise presentation here. Let's see. How many re-entries should you be willing to make? You should be willing to re-enter as long as your bankroll can accommodate the buy-in and you think you have an edge in the game. What does it take to get private coaching from me? Email support@pokercoaching.com and ask the question. A good way to get in touch with me is email support@pokercoaching.com. When you're playing for stacks, you don't want to be playing with just one pair. Well, it depends on the scenario, right, Pumbaa? Say you know your opponent's going to be running bluffs with the obvious bluff hands, and you have a bluff catcher, then you can play for stacks with top pair. It's not like the one pair is what's the most relevant. What's the most relevant is how does that line up with your opponent's range. But yes, in general, against most people, you don't want to be bluff catching with nothing. What's today's topic? Making perfect folds on the river, or close enough to it. I seem tired. I'm actually not that tired at all. I'm in pretty good shape. Shockingly good shape, given I just returned home from Vegas and I had to wake up early and take my kid to school. I was kind of sick for like a week and a half or something. And now I'm not so sick. A little bit sick, but not so sick. But yeah, I mean, if you told me I could go sleep for 6 hours, I would definitely sleep for 6 hours. When you say that with 15 big blinds, the tournament, you should have a range where you min raise or shove before the button and limp or shove on the button. Does this apply to sit and goes? Yeah, just depends on the scenario to some extent. Depends on the payout structure and whatnot. Okay, so when you're going to go make any big exploitative play, you want to make sure that you have good information on that play. And the question becomes like, how much information is the correct and good amount of information? Because, sorry, something's happening with my device holder. Sometimes, I mean, look, I make plays based on relatively little data a lot of the time. And I think that's fine. But you have to realize I'm willing to make plays with a lower, I guess, level of confidence than most other players are. A lot of players really, really, really want to essentially know that their read is right. I mean, someone asked me earlier, how could you know that they had aces and not ace, king, or queens? Well, I didn't know, but I thought, right? It's important to realize, though, what you think could be wrong. I say this a lot, what you think doesn't actually matter. But and when you're playing poker, what you think is relevant, and recognize that what you think is not definitively right, but what you think should lean your decision one way or the other. So let's say in that scenario, I thought one of the two players had aces like 40% of the time each. Well, in that scenario, then it's probably just a fold, right? When you played a million hands, it pays to trust your gut. Depends on if you've been paying attention. A lot of people do not pay attention when they're playing. Does poker coaching need internet? Poker coaching does need internet. So, I suppose if you're going to be deployed for 9 months, it's not going to work. All right, you open under the gun. Someone opened under the gun +1. You call king jack suited on the button. He bet on king 9 low. Low matters. Write down the board. Don't be lazy. It actually takes more effort to write low than it does to write 2. You called. Flop is a brick. Well, turn's a brick. You continued to bet on the turn. What should you do? Call. Very clear marginal made hand here. We discussed this thoroughly at pokercoaching.com. When you have a marginal made hand, you want to be calling down. Instead of player information, how good is info on the population? So I would tell you not to look at population tendencies, but population, like segments of the population, right? So for example, if you know all of the regs across the board do something wrong, then the regs will have specific tendencies. Whereas the recreational players, they'll have very different tendencies. And you may have different kinds of recreational players, right? You may have the maniac recreational players and the nit recreational players. We're actually bringing on a poker coach for pokercoaching.com. Don't think I can release who it is yet, because he hasn't actually made content, but we're doing it. And his whole thing that's allowed him to cash for something like $5 million in the last few years is player pool exploits. For example, he thinks if you just go bet, jam, people fold too often. That leads to him having to re-enter quite a lot of the time. But it's crushing the poker games, so call it what you want. How do you stop overfolding big hands? Well, say call instead of fold. I mean, this is really like the question. How do you stop making big folds? Realize that your opponents are going to be bluffing, especially if they know that you overfold. Well, now you need to be calling a ton. A ton. There's no plan to bring Ryan DePaulo on as a poker coaching coach. I'm actually having lunch with him tomorrow, though. Should I talk about that? Is he good at poker? I don't even know if he's good at poker. I presume he is. Be honest, you one of the greatest poker players that you know. Oh, no, I know pretty much all the best poker players in the world. So, no. Go down the player rankings, and I know all of them. So, presumably, if I know all of them, and they are significantly higher ranked than me, and they play significantly higher stakes than me, and they have significantly higher, bigger results than me, presumably they're better than me. And do I know these people? Yes, I know many of those people. Congrats on the global award. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for voting for me and helping me win it. Here it is right here. It's a nice, big, hefty award. Actually, it's not big, but it's heavy. It's a heavy award. Can you see how fast it drops? Watch. I think everything drops at the same speed. Is that accurate? So anyway, yeah, Global Poker Award. People's Choice Poker Personality. Thank you, people, for voting for me. Running out of room back here on the shelf. I'm going to have to get rid of that shark and pictures of my kids eventually. You told me we would win. You're right. You know, one of my opponents in the top 4 told me he was pretty sure I was going to win, and he was the guy who I thought was going to win. So it's funny how whenever you think one guy's going to win and they think you're going to win, one of you's right. Why don't you play WPT Falls You this year? Because I don't go play random WPTs that are not big enough to justify me leaving the house. Babies drop at the same speed as trophies. Yeah, I think so. Oh, we have a bunch of physicists here in the chat. Are you familiar with MBIT? No, it'd be nice to write MBIT, what that means, so I'd have some idea of what you're talking about. I mean, there are lots of there's lots of personality tests. Like, oh, maybe is this it? Myers-Briggs. Why don't you just say Myers-Briggs? Yes, I know of Myers-Briggs. I'm INTJ, as are almost all very high stakes poker players. INTJ and INTP, is that right? Are the like 95% of high stakes poker players. When you're playing with players who are mostly bad, you tend to win too easily. Sometimes I have no clue what you're asking here. I'm sorry. Do you invest in crypto? Relatively little. As in most things in life. Oh, no. Instagram's about to die on me. As in most things in life, I'm a very big fan of diversification. How are World Series soft compared to WPTs? No, they're about the same. How does someone win 15 of the former and 0 of the latter? Variance. What about ISTP? Well, that sounds pretty far off from INTJ. I don't know. I'm not a personality test expert. Join PC Premium and now you're crushing it. Great, great, great. Glad to hear it. INTP gang representing. Good morning, good morning. Why didn't I play Falls You this year? Didn't I just say this? Because the buy-in was too low to justify me getting up and leaving my apartment. Listen, I have a video or an article. Google or search jonathanlowellpoker.com/travel rake, and you will see why I did not go to Falls You. Basically, buy-ins were too low. Oh, there goes Instagram. That's what happens when you don't charge your device. All right, we're going to put Instagram right down here. Sorry, Instagram. Different view for you today. It's very important to realize that you make money when you buy into events where you have a solid edge. And if you don't have a solid edge and you're not playing for high money, big buy-ins, you're not going to win any money. So say if it falls, I'm going to have 100% ROI. I don't know what the buy-in was. Let's call it 3,500, 5K. It doesn't really matter. That means I'm going to make like 3,500 on the trip. So is it worth it for me to get up and leave my family for a week to win $3,500? Let's assume they have side events, so I'm going to make $5,000. Is it worth it for me to get up and leave to make $750 a day? And the answer is no. Because I can sit here and do a little coffee and write a book and make a podcast and write an article and do stuff like that and make more than $750 a day. So it's just not worth it. Also, you add variance to it. You have to leave your family, etc., etc. So is it worth it to do all of that to try to extract some small amount of money? The answer is no. How do you feel about online poker sites that use only cryptocurrencies? I don't know. I have no feelings. I'm not involved with it. I don't really care all that much. I mean, the thing is that a lot of things are just not on my scope in terms of what I care about. And I'm not going to do anything that gets me in trouble with the law. And the thing is that a lot of the poker sites that accept cryptocurrency also accept US dollars in the shady way. And that will get you in a whole lot of trouble potentially. So, and like, do I need that in my life? Some things you just don't need in your life. How did I build my bankroll? I played Sit and Goes a long time ago. I turned $50 into $350,000 by playing 9-person tournaments with buy-ins of $200 or lower. I played a whole lot of those. A lot of people think you have to get lucky and spike a big tournament to have any chance of success. Well, no. You just have to approach poker like a professional and not like a degenerate gambler. Do I have a 6MA book? I don't know what a 6MA book. Is it true that the top 1,000 players don't have an edge against each other? They definitely do. I can guarantee you the top 10 players are going to crush number 900 to 100, or not 900 to 1,000. If I was to go play against the absolute best players in the world, I'm going to be at a disadvantage. I realize this. Now, the question is, when you go to play a tournament, are there enough really bad players in the field to the point that some of that edge trickles to you and makes it worth it? But, no, if you look at all the super big winners in the high roller games, they all probably have no edge, but that's like the top 50 players. Top 50 players probably don't have much of an edge. That said, those players are all going to have a pretty big edge over like the 1,000th best player. I mean, I remember whenever there was a period where I think I was like number 26 in the world, and I was just like, I don't even know. I think I was winning like at 50% RI that year or something. But I was thinking that if I'm winning at 50% RI here, and I'm number 26 just based on volume, what does that mean for number 100 or number 500? Oh my God, they're getting crushed. So if you are not in like the top 100 players according to the ranking systems, and you're playing a lot, like medium to high stakes tournaments all the time, you're probably just getting demolished. And beyond that, the ranking systems start to break down a bit. Like, for example, I think I'm number 1,000 or something, but I haven't played. So you have to get 4 cashes every quarter. Otherwise, you're just not going to be in the top 300 or so ever. So if you're not getting 4 cashes a quarter, which means you need to play 20 tournaments a quarter at least. If you're not playing 20 tournaments at least, you're just not going to be in the top 300 or so. But if you are, then you're actually pretty live. What's Dusk Till Dawn like? It's a good, solid, not gigantic, but good, solid casino. I like it. Like in terms of like what a nice poker room is like. It's the kind of poker room I would like to have. It's not a giant casino, but it's nice. Plenty of games. Lots of action. They had space outside for the tournaments. They had food and drinks. There's a movie theater right next door. It was good. Has variance ever kept me from playing? I feel like you get discouraged after a 2-hour road trip. No. It's the dream of many people to be able to work from home when their kids are young. Exactly. That is why I stay home, right? I want to stay home. I purposely designed this life such that I could stay home with my kids as long as I want. How did I meet my wife? I met my wife at the PCA. She was there for her last day of a New Year's Eve trip. I was there for my first day of the PCA. We chatted a bit. I'm really cutting this story short because we're running out of time. She lived in New York. One of my students had a charity tournament in New York a month later. He asked if I wanted to come. I said, sure. I was staying in a hotel room that was way too expensive. I chatted with my now wife. She said, why don't you come stay with me? So then I moved in. And didn't move out. As an INTJ, do you think suppressed emotions are an advantage? I mean, look, I don't think I have tons of like emotional reactions compared to most people. Is it an advantage? I would generally think so. If you look at a lot of the good high stakes players, they seem to not care all that much whether they win or lose. Do I have a 6max book? I do not have specifically a 6max book, but you don't need a specific 6max book. What you need is a book on how to play well, which I have, Mastering Small Stakes No Limit Hold'em. There's really no difference between 6max and 9-handed besides the first few players fold, and there's a little bit of card removal effect, but it doesn't really matter all that much. We have GTO 6max charts on pokercoaching.com. Just go check those out and use those and then apply everything else we discuss. Any thoughts on the Stones live stream? They're probably going to be in trouble. It's actually a question. If you went to Stones and streamed, should we be able to have a way to have the casino make us whole? And you may ask, what did the casino take from you? Well, the casino used our images, me and a bunch of pros. They would pay pros to go out there and stream. They paid us to go and essentially be on their show, which allowed them to become more popular, right? So if they're using our images, but then they are also at the same time defrauding their customer base, should there be repercussions? I mean, I'm sure there just won't be for that, because that's like kind of a stretch. But like, am I annoyed that I was paid by someone to go out there to promote them, and I did promote them on social media, and I used their content, right? Should I be mad at them for that? And the question is, how mad should I be? Should I just like get over it, or should I take them to court? Don't think I'm going to take them to court. It seems like a lot of effort. Where do I like to play? I like Aria, I like Vegas, or I like Bellagio. I think those are both two good places. Let's see. What's my favorite place to play? I love the Party Poker Tournament in the Bahamas at Baha Mar. It's a great venue, a great location. It is absolutely fantastic. And that's that. What did they have you sign? I didn't sign anything. Do I have a book for sit and go specifically? No, I do not have a book for sit and goes. However, realize sit and goes are just regular tournaments where the payout structure is a little bit funny. Once you realize that there's a whole lot of value in learning how to play various payout structures based on studying ICM, you will learn very quickly that all tournaments are basically the same. It's just a matter of how much do you adjust for the payout structure. So a lot of the best players in the world came from sit and goes. Myself, I played a ton of sit and goes. Phil Galfond, Dave Benefield, Stevie444, Stephen Chidwick. Like off the top of my head, these are all like world-class sit and go players. And you learn to play various sit and go structures. I was actually adamantly against learning the other structures. For example, six-handed they pay 3 people. I'm sorry, six-handed they pay 2 people, 33% of the field. 10-handed they paid 3 people, 30% of the field. That alone was enough to make me literally never play a six-handed sit and go, because I was really good at that 30% number. But then I realized, they have satellites. They started introducing satellites where like the top 2 would get a seat. So then it's like 50%, 50%, as opposed to 50, 30, 20, or 66, 33. Then they had sit and goes where like first place would be 80% of the prize pool. So it'd be like 80, 15, 5. And I was just like not getting to play those games. So I learned very quickly, if you want to get good and maximize your expectation, then you need to learn to play all the structures. Have I played at Sahara? No. Are all the Chinese businessmen whales? No. Is it safe to play in Vegas right now? I don't know. How do you react to people opening to 5 times the big blind? Just play tighter ranges, right? That's how you react to anyone playing playing ranges that are too wide. You're loving the 30-day challenge. Yeah, check out pokercoaching.com/premium. There we have a 30-day challenge. You can go through 30 days worth of content. You can actually go through it as fast as you want now. And that will get you up to speed. It'll have you playing very, very well, very, very quickly. And that's what we're going for. I want you to have a big edge right off the bat when you start playing poker. And the 30-day challenge will get you up to speed. So check that out at pokercoaching.com/premium. When you want $1 million, did it change your life? No. I already had a decent amount of money from playing poker. And I also don't really spend money. So if you don't spend money and you're already playing the buy-in games that you want to play, you have to remember back then the $10,000 buy-in games were basically the biggest buy-in games that existed. So I was already playing the highest stakes. If that's the case, like what does the money change? You're loving the God's Big Toe Saturday streams? Yeah, I met God's Big Toe this weekend, actually. We went out to Picasso, a fancy dinner in Vegas with me and the poker coaching team. I'll be making a video blog about this in the near future, I think, assuming the editor thinks that the content's good enough. Might be lacking on content, because really I didn't talk about poker at all. But it is what it is, I suppose. It'll either be good or it won't. In the small stakes game, you say to open small. In the tournament class, I say to make a pot size raise. Well, you have to realize a pot size raise is smaller than what most people make it. But also, it depends on the stack size, right? As stack sizes get smaller, you want to be raising smaller. So I presume in the book, I'm referring to shorter stack sizes. With shorter stack sizes, you do want to open smaller. Tournament Masterclass was geared towards 100 big blind poker or deeper. Glad you all are enjoying the live webinars of poker coaching. That makes me happy to hear. We're doing more and more of those because I know that you all love the interactive nature of those, and getting to communicate with many of the best players in the world is highly valuable. Because I realized when I first started playing poker, I didn't know anyone, right? And what really took my game to the next level was being able to talk in real time to players who were significantly better than me, who were beating the games I wanted to beat. And that's what we have for you at PokerCoaching.com. We have webinars with many, many world-class players, and these are either players who I wish were teaching me when I started, or players who I want to learn personally from today. And what more do you want, right? What's the country with the best coffee? I don't know. I'm not a coffee connoisseur. I've had a few good coffee companies send me coffee for a little coffee. We're drinking Purity Coffee this morning. Shout out to them. We had McLaughlin Coffee. They had great coffee as well. I'm a little bit biased to Cafe Du Monde coffee because they have the chicory in it. Turns out if you make the coffee worse by putting bark in it, in some people's opinion, it tastes way better. Who'd have thought? All right, well, I have to get going. Hope you all have a great day today. Thank you very much for being here. Again, thank you. Thank you. I'm probably going to tell you all this every stream now. Thank you for helping me win this award. This means a lot to me because it actually shows and very clearly demonstrates that I am adding value. And I realize that I don't do it in the most splashy, out there, out of line way. I do this in a manner that I think actually betters people's lives. And I'm glad that you all appreciate it. How long did it take to go from 50 to 350K? 3 years. 3 years of hard grinding. Your efforts actually make you better players. Well, that is what I'm going for, right? And I realized if I can make you better at poker, help you win more money, that will allow you to use that to significantly better your life. I have to go now. Instagram says I have to leave. Have a great day. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Be nice to someone, and I will be back on Friday. Bye-bye.